Welcome to the Trades Podcast, a podcast about the business of home improvement and promoting the trades to young adults. In this podcast, we talk with business owners, educators, and professionals about the benefits, skills, and related experiences of the home improvement business. Tips to help you with being successful from entry into the trades or established business owners. In this podcast, we hope to influence some young adults that the trades as a career is a great option leading to full and prosperous life. I'm Danny Torres, an MC, DJ, and podcaster, inspiring young adults by shining light onto career opportunities in our world today.
And I'm Jeff Mudd, home improvement contractor, writer of the Millionaire Carpenter series, and podcaster.
Stay tuned to 15 to 20 minutes of insightful tips.
That's right. Happy days, everybody. This is the TradesPodcast.com. I am DJ Danny.
And I'm Jeff Mudd, contractor.
That's right. Podcasting here in the BVB Ignite studios right here in San Diego, California. But we do have a special guest. He's over here on Zoom. Right now we have Chris with Legacy Decks. Chris, how you doing?
Hey, doing great, guys. Appreciate you having me on for sure.
Awesome. Well, let everybody know who you are, Legacy Decks, and where you're recording from. I know you're calling from over Zoom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I am in Greenville, South Carolina currently, and I'm originally from Detroit area of Michigan. So I'm kind of a transplant from up north down south. And I own a company called Legacy Decks and Outdoor Living. We do exactly that. We build decks. We do outdoor living spaces. We kind of pride ourselves on being very innovative, creating a great customer experience, and just overall kind of elevating the status quo inside of the trades, if you will. I'm a tradesman at heart, though. Like I didn't start off and just decide to start a company and go out there. I grew up around it, was riding shotgun with my dad when I was 8-9 years old. And he was a builder by trade, but a fireman as a career, if you will. And so I just, was always used to being out there, getting my hands dirty and learning how to do things. And I think, as it relates to, your platform here and speaking to the trades, that's ultimately how I got into it. Like I had a specific set of skills and took those skills and decided, hey, I could probably do it a little bit better than the guy I was working for at the time. And there's kind of a low point of entry there can be inside of starting a business like that in the trades. And so like a lot of guys out there, I was, or a lot of guys that are probably listening to this, like I was really good at one particular thing, which, being building decks, and decided I'll start a business. And now all of a sudden I realized, like a lot of people probably will, like, I had to get good at like 12 other jobs too, because now I've got a business, not just a trade that I'm good at.
Yeah.
So we can dig deeper inside of that, but that's a little bit about my story. Went through a lot of the hurdles and the struggles of starting my business out. But in the end, I think the drive that I had to learn my trade transferred into the drive to grow my business. And that's kind of where I find myself right now is I have a team around me, and I'm not just that tradesman at heart. Now I've got actual business that I'm running. So Deck Masters is about 6 years old now. I had another company prior to that for about 9 years, doing very similar things. It wasn't as niche specific. I was a renovation contractor. We kind of did all things to all people. We'd build a fence one day, build a garage the next day, might even build a couple houses here and there. So, I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. Sometimes you just got to be willing to do whatever it takes to make the money. So that's a little bit of background on me.
So one of the things I picked up on your story, how you got into it, Chris, and I think that's a missing component in today's society, is you grew up working with your dad off and on, learning how to do different types of construction, whatever projects he was doing. You said he was a firefighter? Yeah. So whatever he was doing on the side to earn extra money and build a life for him and his family, you got sucked into that. Doing ride-alongs, learning some different skills and stuff. As we've come along society, the next step for a lot of people was wood shop in high school or junior high school.
Yep.
And a lot of that's gone away. So it's really the same thing. At an early age, you've been exposed to which end of the hammer do you hit your thumb with? Which end of the rake do you put down so you don't hit yourself in the face?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good lessons that you learn at an early age. Whether you've worked with your family or you've been been exposed to it in high school. So hopefully the schools, I think, are turning the corner, but that is a big boat to turn.
Yeah.
So.
Do you mind going into that a little bit more? Just saying, like, how important was that to you, being able to go through that with your dad?
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, I never even thought about the fact that like the whole age of like wood shop and those and the mechanics and things like that. Like a lot of that is kind of being phased out for whatever reason, at least where I'm at locally. But how important was it? I mean, hugely important. Like I was able to basically follow alongside someone doing what I long term would end up doing myself, right? So my dad was building houses, he was renovating homes, he was dealing with the customers that were became lifelong friends for him, and I just kind of, it was modeled to me, and I think a lot of it, that's one of the main important things for me, I think, was like having someone that could be an example of it, but also show me along the way how to actually accomplish it. But I also can remember, now that I think about it, it's been a long time, but I remember my woodshop teacher and going through those things in school, and it just reinforced what I was doing on the weekends with my dad. And so that was probably, I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for that like hands-on experience with someone. I ultimately was an apprentice to my dad for a long time, and that led into me growing into where I am now. So just a huge amount of benefit inside of that. So I don't know that I could have gone through a college program or even a high school program that would have gotten me to that point without that core mentorship, if you will, from my dad. So
absolutely, yeah, the psychology behind of the gratification of using your hands to make something beautiful. I mean, you as a business owner, you as an apprentice under your dad, and all the guys in between that you have working for you, I'm sure experience that on different levels. They complete a project, the feeling of their hands producing something is lost feeling for a lot of people in this country.
Yeah, trust me. I have that feeling of when I built that jewelry box in wood shop. I feel I can still, build a house off of that. No, I'm just kidding. But it's super. I mean, it's great to hear. That you went through that experience of getting your hands on, and just like you said, a lot of knowledge was passed along to you by going to these wood shop classes, and also going on the weekend to help your dad out with certain projects. And how important it was for you to get to this point of only, starting out with what kind of career you wanted to go into, and ultimately the business that you grew with Legacy Decks. What type of recommendations for young adults would you kind of, say, that they want to implement in their life, possibly because, frankly, obviously, they're not getting enough exposure to these type of trades or these type of skills and knowledge? What kind of recommendation would you kind of, recommend for kids out there nowadays?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was in a unique situation with, being in the family business, if you will. And so for those that don't have it, but still have that desire to get into the trades, I think it's important to seek out the right mentorship. So whether that's someone in the family or a job that you could get, I think mentorship is a huge piece and played a huge role inside of what I was able to accomplish with myself. And not only are you learning a trade, I think one of the big values with today's trade businesses is that they're not these huge multi-gajillion-dollar companies, right? You've got, most of them are small businesses, less than $10 million, let's say. And so as a young person, I'm thinking back to like 16-year-old, 18-year-old Chris. If I was exposed to that, even if I'm just coming in and sweeping floors or riding shotgun as a helper cleaning up job sites, I'm not only learning a trade that'll be hugely valuable long term, but I think an intangible thing that people miss out on is the opportunity to see behind the curtain of a small operating trades business, right? So I look at my team now and the exposure that they have to see how we make decisions, how we do even the most basic of things as far as how we do estimates, how we do warranty claims, how do we answer our phones. Like there's a huge value, not just in learning the trade itself, because I think long term, these young adults that are going to be learning a trade not only need to be able to know the trade, but a lot of them, I think, have a lot of ambition towards larger things, which I think is that's another topic as far as the struggle that we're having to find help right now, is they want these big big lofty goals inside of business or career, but they some of them might be a little unwilling to go through the the trenches to get there. So I think if we could open up to show the full opportunity, not only are we going to teach you how to build decks and build outdoor living spaces, but you're going to be exposed to our full team. Like, we have weekly meetings where we analyze our goals and we look at what are the things we're going to do this quarter inside of our business to grow the business. They're literally watching my business grow from the inside as a witness to it, which would give them an opportunity to someday go off and either lead inside of my organization at a different level besides just necessarily swinging a hammer, or there's a ton of gratification out of that, but a lot of them I think have ambition to go beyond that. And so that's kind of an intangible thing. So if I were to try to communicate to someone that's listening to this, like the value inside of finding mentorship, number one, but then finding a company or a family member, whoever it may be, but ideally a company that has good culture and is small enough to where you're going to see the nitty gritty of the day to day. Does that make sense?
Being involved in the company on different levels for somebody getting into any business, whether it's construction or not, as opposed to the McDonald's or the Henry Ford mentality, that you take the least amount of skill possible to pay the least amount of money to create the assembly line productivity for higher profit. So when you come into a small business and the business owner is directly there, maybe not every day, but he's there during the week. They see the goals, the processes that you business owners set up, I think is huge to a young adult. I remember one time, it had to be over a decade or so ago, and we had a $50,000 job, I think it was, and the 19-year-old found out $50,000. Oh man, this owner must be rich. He had no idea about all the other. You have to have insurance. You pay for the shop. The shop. Marketing. How much that costs? And so if they're involved in a business on a different levels, it allows them to see the different cost and the different efforts and the sleepless nights. Sometimes that you have as a business owner to build that business. So.
Well, and I don't know how other entrepreneurs do this, but me personally, as I'm trying to grow my team and bring people in to learn the trade, I expose them to things like the numbers, like you're talking about, Jeff, and at a level that maybe some companies wouldn't do. But let's say, for instance, my company and a lot of trades companies probably are in maybe high single digits, low double digit profit margins. Let's just say 10%, right? Yeah. Well, I actually will do an exercise with my team where I will take and take $1. I'll take $10 and I'll divide it up. Okay, $6 go towards cost of goods and payroll, and $3 go towards overhead and the building and the trucks and all those things. And that leaves what? $1 left, right? This $1, this is like the profit of the business. So you see a job that might be $100,000, right? But if you're only keeping 10% of that, right, there's $10,000. Well, let's say we have a mistake on the job that costs us $11,000. Like, essentially, we did that job for free, right? Anyways, I use that example just to say, like, those are the types of conversations that we have in my conference room, and you wouldn't get that in your average, white collar, career path, if you will. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Just another example. We do the same thing. You're running on a 10% margin, and then you take the credit card for the final payment for the whole job. Oh, wow.
You lose 3%.
Yeah. There's 3% just out the door.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, and I think that has to do
intangible things that people get exposure to when they're inside of that ecosystem of a small trades business.
It's huge. It sets the stage for somebody to go farther in life, either as their own business owner or being a better employee for either you or somebody else.
Yep. Yeah, that has to do a lot with, like you mentioned it, culture. Culture is huge right now, even specifically for the younger generation, where like you mentioned, it's not marketed. I don't think it's as popular for businesses to run it as a assembly line where it's just going to be streamlined for profits, and especially for employees, as we've seen with this, the great,
resignation
that everybody's leaving their jobs and changing. different careers. It's huge. The culture of how you interact with your employees, especially if you are the boss on a small business of a trades company, you know, seeing them, you communicate with them about certain jobs or even being hands-on is huge. And I mean, and you had mentioned it, that you think mentorship is huge for young adults. And even you explained it a little bit more on specifically with your company on how you interact with your employees and how you include them in those processes. Can you kind of go a little bit more into your training programs and possibly what a new skilled worker would kind of go through Legacy Decks?
Yeah, and I'll give a disclaimer, like we by no means do this perfectly, and it's a constant evolving thing, right? Because training is so important. But we're in the process right now of implementing an LMS, a learning management system, learning management software, whatever you want to call it, so that we can actually document through video and audio all of our processes and actually sit someone down. I'll compare it to like when I had a job at Lowe's when I was early 20s, right? And when you get a job at Lowe's, and I imagine a lot of other companies like that, they sit you down at a computer in the back HR room for like a day and a half, and you watch videos on how to run a forklift and how to wear your vest, and like all these things. And it seems silly, right? But if it was applicable to the job that you have, like I'm trying to do right now. So we're in the process of creating something like that. Not to say it'll be at the level of Lowe's or Walmart or whatever, but we're trying to document all of our processes inside of how do we run a sales appointment. I'm in the process right now of hiring. We just hired a third salesperson for my team. And so they're going through a specific process of how do we run an appointment? What do you say when you actually meet with the customer? What are the documents you go through? What are the photos you show them? What are the measurements that you have to take? So that's part of the sales training process that we go through. Now, in addition to teaching them that, we actually will have them shadow for the first 3 months, my sales manager or another salesperson, even myself at times. So as far as the sales training process, that's pretty much the process there. We sit them down, we teach them how to do the designs that we do and the estimating, and implement this or integrate them into the softwares that we utilize. So again, we don't have all of that figured out at this point. Right now, we've got a lot of like flow charts and things that explain our project management process. This is the first thing we do, and it's 42 steps to get to the end of a project. And so we walk them through that. But right now, a lot of it is going to be hands-on, where they're just out there in the field with whoever might be leading or guiding or mentoring them. And then the back-end support is the documentation, whether it be in written form or video form, like we're trying to do. But I think you can't really substitute the value inside of like riding shotgun with somebody and going on 32 sales appointments, or riding shotgun and going out to a project and walking through the how we're going to build what we're going to build as far as project management goes.
Absolutely.
So again, I said we don't have it all figured out, but a lot of it just comes down to like one-on-one mentoring, and how driven is the person that we hire in to participate inside of that. So,
well, you've also created a chain where if there is questions, there is problems, how do they get those answered? It's not like, well, we trained you and figure it out, So yeah, that's a big step. Congratulations, Chris.
Yeah, that's a great technology that you're implementing for your new workers, and like you said, for the unskilled ones, where they're just going to be hands-on, where it's important to be on the field.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I don't know too much on the Legacy Decks area of the technology side, but what kind of things could someone that has been in the industry going to Legacy Decks see a little bit different on that technology side?
Sure. Yeah. So we really pride ourselves on having technology that's number one, serves a purpose. It's not just there to be there, right? We don't want to do double redundancies on data entry and things like that. But number two is user friendly enough that even our most entry level person can come in and utilize it, right? So we have specific technologies that we use, and industry wide, I will say, like I have a handful of associates that I work with that don't have any kind of project management software. They don't have any kind of CRM for managing their customers. And maybe about the only softwares they utilize might be like an accounting software, QuickBooks. Everybody knows QuickBooks, right? So if nothing else, we got to keep track of the money. But for us, it's super important to have visibility across all of my staff to what's going on a project. So we use one particular project management software, very easy to utilize. And the reality is most of the young adults that are coming up are so used to different user interfaces that it's very simple for them to come in. If they can work their iPhone, they can work our softwares. And a lot of our software runs off of your iPhone or iPad. And so it's really important for us to have a technology that everybody has the same visibility. Inside of that project management software, you can see daily photos from, who's doing what out in the field. We can communicate with our subcontractors through it. Our homeowners actually have access to visibility of what's going on their job. And so ton of value inside of that. From the CRM side of it, we utilize for all of our customers to be able to continue to nurture relationships, right? So we sell somebody a deck, and then, maybe 3 years before they want to add on that outdoor kitchen or, the covered porch or whatever the case may be. So how are we remarketing to them? So we use a CRM that helps us just to kind of nurture those relationships, sends out automated emails and things like that. And so that's a huge piece of what we do. And let's see, other technology stuff that we utilize. Ultimately, the iPhone is your best friend, or Android, whatever you want to do. But the phone itself, just having, and it seems super basic, but I'll ask people on an interview, like, what do they use their phone for? It's not just a phone anymore, right? So how do you manage yourself utilizing your phone? Show me a picture of your calendar in your phone. Are you actually utilizing the calendar in your app? Now, I get a lot of people aren't, but if they are, it tells me a lot about that person when I'm interviewing them. Did you have today's interview in your iPhone calendar? Yes or no? It's not like a disqualifier, but it tells me something about the person I'm talking to. So
I love it.
I don't know if that answers your question, but technology wise, we really, really, really pride ourselves on being very efficient and having people. It makes everybody's life easier when you have good technology. So.
Absolutely. So the guy opens up the iPhone, oh yeah, check out my calendar, and oh yeah, I got an appointment next week, and I'm going to show him this set of videos and pictures I took of all the decks I did 3 months ago. Right. I might have a nice side job coming up. Yep. Is what you're hearing.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's perfect. And like you said, the technology is huge, specifically even with the younger generation, because it's most likely, if they're not on the business side of things using it for your customers, most likely they have been on the customer service side, already knowing what responses are expected, how the interfaces would work, and they should be able to have that, that basic line of knowledge of, okay, well, I know how to use this, and it's just going to be more towards exactly what a Legacy Decks is going to be expecting out of yourself and to the customer. So that's great. Right. And you mentioned that you were hiring on the sales side of your company, but also on the unskilled worker, someone that's trying to get into the trades or is new to deck building and everything that comes with it on that side of the business. What type of candidates are you looking for right now? And what would you, as a business owner, someone that's been in the industry for so long and have taken all those steps, what are you looking for, and what would you think a new employee would want to kind of feel confident in having?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing I'm looking for is somebody who's motivated. Whether or not you know how to build a deck or drive a nail or any of that is almost on the bottom of the list. I've got probably half of my staff right now that works with me had zero construction experience before they came in, which was great for me. And for Canada, I'm not necessarily looking for somebody with no construction experience, but if you don't have any, that means that everything that you learn will be a direct reflection of what I teach you. And so essentially, I'll be crafting someone into the craftsman that I'm looking for, right? And so essentially looking for somebody who's motivated, someone that's a good cultural fit. Like they enjoy the, like Jeff, you mentioned before, the finished product of working with your hands. So some of our skills, we actually do some skills testing with our people that we're looking to hire. And again, it's not there's not a disqualifying factor. But if I asked you to tell me how you would build, this picture. If I give you a picture of a deck, like how would you go about just starting it? Like, what do you think would be the first things you do? It just gives me an idea around like, how do they think? And so someone who's not afraid to actually be wrong or make a mistake, but they're willing to be humble enough to come in and learn. So that's a big thing for me. Other things that we look for would be like this might seem very intangible or hard to put your finger on, but when I'm having a conversation with someone, before I even have them come into my office, we'll have a phone conversation just to kind of see what our energy is. And the intangible thing there is like, does this feel like somebody that I would probably, hang out on the weekend with if I had some, watch a football game with or whatever? If it doesn't, do I really want to spend 40 or 50 hours a week in the office with them, right? So, and that's, again, that's an intangible thing, but for me, those are things that we're looking for. So on top of like whether you have the skills or what your background is as far as skills go, we're ultimately looking for someone that's motivated, culturally is a good fit, like a good team player, fits in with the core values, the team, and likes to have a good time on top of getting things done. Like those are two things. Like it's one thing to like to have a good time, but do they like to get things done just the same? So like, what are their hobbies? What do they do on the weekend when they're not working?
Well, I got a quick question for you on that, Chris. Have you ever tried to test for how they handle criticism?
No, I haven't actually. I'm gonna have to take notes on this. How they handle criticism. No. So we have tested on our core values. So I'll give you an example. One of our core values is family first, right? Like it's great that we all work together and do this thing, but like if you got a family thing come up, like that takes precedence. And so we test on that by asking them like, hey, tell us, because you can't really just say, hey, are you a family kind of person? Because well, of course I am. We'll ask them like, hey, tell me about your favorite family or childhood memory, or family holiday memory. And if they're like, oh, like I like to spend the holidays by myself. I don't want to go in, So that's kind of how we test on that. But how have you tested on how they take criticism before?
I haven't really tested it, but we've had a lot of employees that seem to have a great attitude until you see them doing something a little bit off.
Right.
And it's like, hey, Jim, if you would have put your square up there, when used a lighter pencil, you wouldn't have left a big heavy mark when you're cutting around the post using the deck board there. And it's like, blah, blah, they go off on you. It's like, I've been doing it this way for 20 years. Well, doesn't mean you've been doing it right for 20 years.
I don't know how I could. I'll tell you this. I did have a relevant experience with that this morning, and this is how the gentleman handled it, or the person handled the criticism. So my team had to clean up from the home show this past weekend. We had a home show in our town, and they had to break down all like these backdrops and stuff like that. And I got into my office, and it was all still sitting in our hallway, if you will. And I start looking in it, and all these backdrops and stuff are just shoved in there, like crammed in there. I'm like, man, it's all, you got to hold this stuff up nice, so next year it's good when it comes out, right? Well, so I called him up, and I just kind of shared that with him. But as far as like the response that I got back on it, he was very, very humble. And hang on, let me find it real quick here. I appreciate the accountability, he says. Sorry that I wasted your time today having to deal with that. I absolutely won't let it happen again.
Oh,
right?
Fantastic.
And this is something like,
look at that.
Nobody likes confrontation. Like I personally didn't even want to have to call the guy. I've got 5 years of business and personal background with him, because he's like a guy that I hang with, I work out with now. He started off just as an employee, but culturally he's a good fit. So we live life together now, right? Because there's not like work and home life. It's just like life. Work is part of life. And so, but anyways, all that to say, I had to call him up and be like, man, who did this and what's going on? And like, this is unacceptable. And I did it in a nice way, but still I had to hold him accountable to it. But the fact that he responded with that, because I texted him, I said, hey man, don't beat yourself up over it. And he responded back, won't happen again. I appreciate the accountability. So that's the kind of like, I don't know how I could have tested to find out how he handled criticism ahead of time, but if you figure that out, we should write a book or something.
Yeah, we got a new podcast just on accountability there. And
that's right.
Yeah.
No, I think that was great responses on both sides. That's good. That's great. On how you handle it, and even for him to come back with a response on that part. Like you said, that's culturally within the company. That's really solid for you to have that relationship with everybody and be able to have a communication key like that. And I think it's great. Just everything that we've talked about. Before we kind of wrap it up here today, we really wanted to kind of know, on your side, with the history and the experience that you have within the trades, of, the main benefits. What are like the main benefits that you can really get working within the trades with your experience, that you really can't get with other professions? I mean, you mentioned that you worked at Lowe's for a little while. It's still in the home improvement area of a company, but it's a little bit more corporate, and it's a little bit more
a lot more corporate.
A lot more corporate, yeah. But other than those type of jobs and possibly what you've heard from family and friends, but with your experience, what are the main benefits that you see working in the trades?
Well, I think go back to what I kind of touched on before, was like most trades businesses are going to be in that $1 to $10 million range, and so you're in a container where a lot of times you'll actually have a voice. So one of the benefits would be like my team has a voice inside of what we do. Do we always do what they want to do? No, but it's a small enough organization that you have that voice. So that's one thing. The second thing, like I said before, again, not to keep pointing back, but like you're exposed to the inner workings of a business at a super high level. And I guess the third piece would be just literally that trade and that craft that you're going to put in your arsenal of skills, that no matter what happens, whether this job works out or not, like you're learning something that you can take and start in another position at another company, and you'll immediately be able to add that value because you learned how to do X, Y, and you learned how to frame a deck, or you learned how to, whatever the case may be in whatever trade it is, you're an electrician, a plumber, like that's a lifelong skill that you're literally being paid to learn how to do something that will get you paid, right? How many colleges do you get paid to go to? So I think, those couple of things, like just having a voice inside of the company is huge. Seeing the inner workings of a company, like I have no idea how Lowe's works because they don't expose you to that while you're there. I know how my department worked.
Yeah.
And then the third piece, obviously, is that lifelong skill that no matter what, I haven't physically built anything myself personally for the last 10 years. Well, except last night, I had to help my daughter with a catapult for her physics high school project, right? So I had to get the tool belt out. But I have that skill. I could go back tomorrow and build decks and make a very good living if everything, fell apart inside of what I'm doing. So those are some huge pieces I think that are beneficial to anybody that's looking to get into the trades, is they really can't take that skill away from you. And you're going to get exposure to the inner workings of a business at a level that a lot of people will never actually get the ability to see. So
absolutely. Very well put, Chris.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
All right. So if anybody needs to get a hold of you, Chris, what's the best way to reach out to them?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously the company is Legacy Decks. You can go to legacydecks.com. My Instagram is Legacy Decks and Outdoor Living. So go check us out on Instagram. And, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if anybody's looking to get into the trades or in my area or wants to relocate, like we'll help you relocate. So we're actively looking for deck builders, and we're looking for apprentices to rise up in that field. That's a huge thing for us right now.
So all the California people that are jumping ship and heading east, you'll take a couple.
Yeah, for sure. So, but no, I really appreciate you guys having me on for sure. I hope this adds some value to somebody out there. And if there's anything I can do, by all means, I'd love to.
Yeah, no doubt. We have no doubt it will, especially coming from a different region that we haven't had a chance to speak with about and kind of get to know who you are and your business. I think it's great. So yeah, anybody that's looking to reach out to Chris, you can find his info on thetradespodcast.com. But Chris, again, with Legacy Decks, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks, guys. Yep, thanks.